Peace be with you. So, this morning I'm driving home from work and I just decided to make a video about drugs and dangers of drugs. I usually make videos about religion and Islam and Christianity, but I'm also an ER doctor and I have a lot of personal experience with drug addicts and drugs. So I want to warn people because of the patterns I'm seeing in American medicine now. So specifically, I want to use as an example a drug called Adderall, and not just Adderall, but any stimulant, any prescription stimulant that is an amphetamine or some sort of a closely related molecule that produces the same effects, meaning effects of that of a stimulant drugs, feeling of euphoria, feeling of energy, just feeling like you're amped up. And some people like that feeling. You have three or four different types of feelings that addicts deal with. You have the drunk feeling, which alcoholics love the most. You have the downers, which are opioids and stuff. People that just chill down. Then you have people who just like uppers. People who tried heroin, didn't like it, and they'll just be addicted to meth. And then also, marijuana and then Xanax, which is also a downer like alcohol. Now, a lot of these are prescription medications, and some of these things are over-the-counter substances. That's fine. But some of these things are encouraged, and this is where the problem therein lies. They're encouraged by doctors and encouraged by pharmaceutical companies who I feel they made up some indications and then expanded them slowly to create a very overprescribed medicine, very dangerous medicine. If you look at the prescription patterns for Adderall, you can see the increase in amount of prescriptions written, and it's pretty impressive. It is pretty impressive, and I think that is very dangerous because when you look at the effects of stimulants, first you have to understand who you're giving them to. All right, if you give them to very young children who are truly misbehaved, or not truly misbehaved, but just obviously ADHD, and that's a very, I think that should be a very strict set of symptoms, which is not. It's all very subjective. But if everything else has failed, including parenting, which is very hard, it's very hard, but you have to parent, and then you give these young children Adderall as a last resort, then children at that age may get used to that whole euphoria feeling before addiction kicks in. So they're not as prone to just that figuring it out like that and then loving the feeling, chasing the ghost. So if you give this medicine to teenagers, if you prescribe Adderall to teenagers, now this medicine has a very low therapeutic index. Very low therapeutic index, not in the sense that it's toxic like arsenic would be, but in a sense that it is the cause of so many social ills and death that is phenomenal. So it's phenomenally dangerous if you do not hit the correct dose. And the correct dose can vary wildly. It can vary wildly from person to person, so you can never know when you're on that sweet spot. And if you give it to a teenage population in this environment, they're going to take more. Sooner or later, they're going to take more than they need to or were prescribed to. Feel that euphoria feeling, and then slowly sink into that. Even if a small percentage of them slowly sinks into addiction, it's still a lot of people. It's kind of like COVID, And it's this addiction is more dangerous to young people than COVID. Not only in the terms of poverty and crime rates and just suffering. The symptoms of addictions are suffering. You're just out here freezing, holding a sign, begging people for money, or out there stealing or prostituting yourself. So it's very dangerous. If you catch addiction, the symptoms are terrible. So it's very important to try to minimize the exposure or at least encouragement of young people to take this crap, because it's so dangerous that it can destroy them, and most of them don't need it. Most of them don't need it because there's always something underlying secondary gain or something missing from their environment that's causing them to act out. And usually so because I make religious video, I'm going to say religion. It is faith that's supposed to give you that discipline. It is the faith that's supposed to keep you away from this stupidity, just harming yourself like that. But the devil sits at every door, including medicine. And a lot of doctors encourage this. A lot of doctors encourage this, and they are addicting people. And you don't believe me? You don't have to believe me. I don't care. But who started the opioid epidemic? Who started the opioid epidemic? Doctors. Go. It's on Netflix. They are not ever. It's very well depicted. Go watch it. I forgot the name of the show, but I know it's on Netflix, and you can go watch how it happened. Naive doctors believing the pharmaceutical rep salesmen who have no scientific training and were just easily fooled by data, by misrepresented data. They just changed the scale to logarithmic scale, and everybody's like, oh yeah, the concentration never plateaus and then plummets, like what they associated with addiction. But it's the feeling, and they did this before, and they're doing it again, and people believe it because what I'm just saying now is not popular in medicine. Most doctors are going to say he is full of it, everything is decided, concluded, whatever. But I am just saying, if you love your children, you should try everything, including parenting, before putting them on these medications or exposing them to these medications or encouraging these medications. What you should be telling them is that these medications are more dangerous to them than corona, because they are. More young people die, way more young people die from drugs every year than corona from the beginning. Yeah. So if you are worried about your children and corona, you are kind of misinformed, because danger to them is not COVID, because rarely die from COVID, but danger to them is drugs, and you actually are going to consider encouraging them to try stimulants, especially in teenage years, because somebody else told you that that's the right thing to do, because they wanted you to do that because their friends are on it and their friends are full of energy and their friends can study. But some of the percentage of those people are going to be crackheads, because the opioid epidemic is dying down, because the people are dying down, and we have again created an effective message of how dangerous these drugs are, or at least are starting to. But the stimulants are ramping back up, and if you look at this, how it develops, you just look at American history. And in the 70s, I think it was opioids, heroin. Then 80s, it was cocaine and crack. 90s, heroin started coming back in, and we're gonna get back to meth, and just an epidemic after epidemic. And that's the last two cycles. Now, I'm not saying every cycle was driven by pharmaceutical industry, but the last two cycles certainly appeared to have been at least helped along, and I believe driven completely, to be honest, because they're the ones providing the substance, and this substance is killing people and destroying their lives. And there is no difference. There is no difference. Adderall and methamphetamine provide the same experience. So whatever their chemically functional group is on them that provides that experience is on both of them, and you just have to compare dosages, and to think that especially young people are not going to increase the dose and actually find that euphoria and then continue to chase that ghost, at least a small percentage of them, then that's just silly. That is just silly. Now, that is the risk to these medications. So the parents should evaluate that risk and say, okay, on one hand, my kid is difficult to deal with. How can I fix that? How can I work with their teachers? How can I be more involved if that's where they're acting out? And I'm not saying this is easy. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it if my kids do this, but I'm just saying, this is, have you done these things? And if you haven't, you should before medicine. You should before medicine, because the failure with medicine is addiction. If you get a side effect of medicine that's addiction, that's like the worst side effect this medicine has. And it's tragic. It is tragic. So that's my warning. I know some people are going to be like, man, I need Adderall to function, and all addicts say that. I'm not saying you're an addict. You actually may be the one of those who need it, but all addicts say that. So I'm not even trying to hear it. I'm just saying, if you haven't put your kids on this, if you're considering it, you should reconsider and do everything else. And it's very dangerous. And if you are a young person that wants to try this, hey, if you think the life can't get harder, you know, if you catch this addiction, if you catch addiction, you're gonna wish you caught corona, because at least from corona you die kind of quick. From addiction you suffer, you prostitute yourself, you steal, you beg, you humiliate yourself more than you ever thought you would humiliate yourself in your life. You humiliate yourself, and then you die, and then you die like a dog in a gutter. And then the family just shrugs their shoulder and says, we love them, we tried everything to help them, and they're right. And they are right. Catching addiction is catching suicide, but a slow suffering one. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to warn people about this. You know, it's not just Adderall, but that is what I perceive to be the greatest danger right now. But there's a lot of other drugs that are pushed by pharmaceutical industries that are very dangerous. Xanax being another good example. Hell, they even have a methamphetamine on the market. I forgot the name of it, but something DOXYSYN, something like that. It's in my medical apps. It's a literal methamphetamine. Meth. In a pill form. So there are things like this in medicine, and I think at least somebody should say it. So that's all I wanted to say.